Hello everybody. In this video I want to do just a little bit of explanation of how to do some of our means, medians, modes, like how we can do that using some of our Excel resources so that you've got this at your fingertips. So I just have a little bit of data. This is a little study that we did looking at dominant or non-dominant hand and the number of dots that were clicked. This was like some psychological performance reaction time thing looking at dominant and non-dominant, and we can kind of go through and how we can look at our data real quick. So let's just say that I was trying to look at the mean number of dots clicked. So if I just want to look up a basic mean, this would be equal to our x bar. And if we were to do that, we can just say our equal sign. We can type out, remember in Excel, to get the numerical mean, we get the average. Do a parentheses, and then we need to highlight our data. We can either click and drag all the way down, or we could push Control-Shift down. That will highlight all of the data. I'm going to end with a parentheses, and that will give me the average. So I just took the average of all of our data right there. If I want to find the median, I can simply type in median, and again highlight my data, or I can just do Control-Shift down, end with the parentheses, and there I have that my median is equal to 29. And I'm going to label this right here that this is of our total, and I can't spell median. There we go. Okay, let's say that I'm looking for the mode. If we're looking for the mode, we can just say equals mode. And this is a looks like a little bit of an older equation, but it still works just fine. We can type in mode, highlight our data, or do your Control-Shift down again, and it says that the number 28 is the one that pops up the most. Okay, let's say that we wanted to know how often this mode came up. So if we went over here, we could do count of mode. And here we can just say equals COUNTIF, and we give it a range of where we want to do this counting from. So we'll give it the same range that we've been doing. And then what's the criteria of what do you want to count? And we're going to say just the number 28. And if we do that, it says that, hey, the number 28 popped up exactly 3 times. It looks like the other numbers did not pop up that often. We could check some other numbers too if we wanted to say, instead of 28, let's say that we could delete that out. We could just say the number 29. The 29 shows up 2 times. If we do the number 20, let's do the number 24, that popped up 2 times. It looks like most everything only popped up a couple of times. Let's do 30, pops up 2 times, and we see here that our number 28 is our mode of 3 times. All right, so we figured out how we can do a count. Let's say that we're interested in some more of our spread things. So we could look at what is the minimum, and we can just type in min and highlight our range again, Control-Shift down, and it tells us that our minimum is equal to 15, and we can say that the maximum is equal to, we can just type in max, M-A-X, for our maximum, and we can get all of our values again, and we see that our maximum is in fact 48. Okay, so we've got our minimum, we've got our maximum. If we want the range, there's a couple of ways that we can do that. We could just say equals the maximum that we have here minus the minimum, and that gives us the range. I think there also might be a range formula, and it looks like there are some range options there, but we're just going to stick along with just the base idea of our range. All right, perfect. We can also look at our standard deviation, or so this would be our sample standard deviation. That would just be lowercase s. And we can do this by stdev.s for our sample standard deviation. And we can gather all of our data, stdev.s, That gives us our standard deviation. We can look at the sample variant, which in our notation would just be s squared. And we can simply just take the value above us and we can square it. And there we go. We've got our standard deviation squared. So we have our standard deviations, we have our variances, maximum, minimums, range, we have our means, we have all sorts of good stuff here. Okay, something else that we could do. Maybe we were looking at like, okay, what proportion of people use their dominant hand and what proportion of people use their non-dominant hand. Okay, so let's just say, let's look at the proportion, or let's look at the count of the dominant. Count of dominant. And here we can just do count if. So we already did that one before, but we can do count if. We'll select our range that we're interested in. So notice that we are now using our categorical data. And we can now just click on one that says dominant. It doesn't matter which one that you use. If you count the number of dominants, it's going to say, hey, we have 24. If we go to count of non-dominant, we can do the exact same thing as above. You know what? I'm even just going to double click on here. I'm going to copy this text. So I'm just going to use like a Control-C, go in and paste. And instead of A2, notice how I can go up. When you are selecting like an individual cell, it's got this like big plus sign, this big white plus sign. But when you go and highlight on the edge, it kind of moves it to this black plus sign with the arrows. If you click, you can drag that red cell to a new reference. And I'm going to drag it down to a non-dominant one. And if I hit equals, I have 22. Okay, now we can also ask for just the number of observations. And that is like our little n for our sample size. And here we can just do count A, which just counts the number of cells that are not empty. And so we'll go from our first entry all the way to the last. And we can see that we have 46. Hopefully we get that because the count of the dominant and the count of the non-dominant, they should sum up to our total here. So we can say that our proportion dominant, which you might see as like P underscore dom, just like for the subscript dominant. And that would just be the number of dominant divided by our total number. And we can also do our proportion non-dominant, which you might shorten to do like P underscore ndom, something like that. And we can do this by the count of the non-dominant divided by the count of our total. That gives us our proportion. Now, if we sum those together, what should we get? We should get a sum of 1. And we do. There we go. We get a sum of 1. All right, so doing each of those little steps allows us to like use our means, our medians, our modes, some kind of like of our spread values. We have the count the dominants, the non-dominants, and our proportions. Okay, a couple of other just like little things that we can do is we can also sort our data so that we could do things just by the dominant or just by the non-dominant. And so one easy way that I'm going to show, there's lots of ways that you can like programmatically do the whole thing, but let's highlight all of our data. So I've got all my data selected. Remember, you could do Control-Shift down. I'm going to go to sort and filter. So it's in my home all the way over to the edge, sort and filter, or you can just do a right click and do sort, and we're going to do a custom sort. So it pops up this little pop-up box that allows us to make some rules of how we want to sort. I want to sort by the dominant or non-dominant, and I want to do it by the cell values. And I want to sort it from A to Z. So it's going to group all of my dominants together and then all of my non-dominants together. And if I click OK, notice how I have all of my dominants in a row. And now I have all of my oopsies. Move that back. And I have all of my non-dominants down here. Now what's cool is I could do these exact same things for, let's just say, the dominant. Okay, so now I'd want to do the average of just highlighting the dominant section. Now I have my average for my dominant. I can do my median. I can do my median again for just my dominant section. I can do my mode for my dominant section. Let's see, I might not have a mode. Okay, it gives me 39. And let's do the mode count. Now what I can do here is I'm just going to copy this one because we already did this formula. And I'm just going to shorten it now. So instead of covering everything, you can click on that corner, kind of drag it up. So now I'm just looking at my dominant, and I'm going to drag it over to my 39, and I've got 2. So there's actually probably a bunch of modes in here. This one just might be my largest mode. So if we look at, I've got 39 in there 2 times. Do I have any other numbers in there 2 times? I think I've got, yeah, I've got like 24 in there 2 times. So this one's actually multimodal. So it's only picking up one of the many. Okay, let's go look at like our maximum though. So we can do, yeah, let's just do this real quick. Equals the maximum of our dominance. We can do the minimum, oopsies, equals the minimum of the dominance. And I can now do the range of my, oops, I have those backwards, didn't I? Yep. We will just move those out of the way for a minimum and maximum. There we go. So now I've got my maximum minus the minimum. Gives me my range. I can do stdev.s to give my standard deviation of using my dominant hand, and I can get the variance of that, the above 1, and let's just square it. To get that caret, it's Shift 6, if you didn't know that, on your keyboard, Shift 6. Okay, and then I can do I could do these counts of the dom, but remember I already have the count of the dominant is 24. There's no other proportions right there, so I can kind of stop there. Now I did my dominant. You can also do your non-dominant, and we can kind of see the differences between them if we're starting to look at that. Anyhow, so there is a quick little review and an introduction, if you've never seen it before, into how do we get our like basic summary statistics using base Excel. And hopefully this is really going to help prepare you for some of the things that you will see on the exam, because you get to use base Excel, not our add-in, but we can definitely use our base Excel to help us out. Okay? Good luck, you guys.